My name is Carl Hobert, author of Raising Global IQ, Preparing Our Students for a Shrinking Planet. Today, I'd like to introduce the concept of triangulation as a way to achieve resolution to a host of very complex conflicts going on in our world today. This is something I've developed and refined for over 30 years in an attempt to teach the next generation of leaders how to prevent more effectively what I call the cancer of conflict. We live in a world increasingly gripped by adversarial us versus them narratives. From the war in Ukraine to the U.S. southern border debate and beyond. We find that our leaders are often engaged in unconstructive disputes rather than collaborative efforts to take on these issues together. This is a call to action that I have for all of us to refine our negotiation skills, to begin to solve more effectively problems such as the war in Ukraine and the southern border debate. This concept of triangulation is simple and it's important. In every conflict resolution case study that we author, we include 6 characters or sides in each case study. Those 6 characters are, for example, in our case study on Ukraine, the foreign minister of Ukraine, the foreign minister of Russia, the foreign ministers of the state of Georgia and Turkey, and 2 regional leaders within the state of Ukraine. One being very pro-Ukrainian and the other being very pro-Russian. These 6 sides are important because they teach people how to walk in the shoes of leaders with whom they might not agree. With these 6 sides, each of the groups that represents one of these 6 characters must focus on only 3 issues. Issues A, B, and C. Issue A, in the case of Ukraine, is the threat of nuclear war. Issue B is the governance of the 4 eastern regions of Ukraine that have been annexed by Russia. And letter C is the agricultural problems that have been created by the war in Ukraine, especially affecting poverty-stricken third world nations. So what I'd like to talk about is how exactly these case studies are constructed. As you'll see in this diagram, we first create a triangle. At each point in the triangle, we include 3 pairs of slightly overlapping circles. As you see, portions of the circle are both inside and outside of the triangle. These 6 circles represent the 6 characters that will come to the negotiation table to discuss the particular issue that the case study is focused on. You'll see that there is slight overlap between each of the 3 pairs. That overlap means that they share overlapping interests when looking at issues A, B, and C. For example, the ministers of foreign affairs of Turkey and the state of Georgia have overlapping interests as outsiders who are now at the negotiation table, interests in terms of avoiding the threat of nuclear war, interests in terms of peace being achieved in the 4 eastern provinces, and letter C, an interest in improving the agricultural exports coming out of Ukraine in the Black Sea. When the negotiation commences, characters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 split off into 6 separate tables. There, for a total of 15 minutes, each table represented by normally 5 to 10 people each, must negotiate over how they are going to present to the 6 other characters' tables their stances on issues A, B, and C. As you can imagine, this in and of itself, often called a pre-negotiation meeting, is in and of itself a round of negotiations. Each team must decide who the spokesperson will be, who the author of the pre-negotiation meeting will be, and who is going to deliver these outcomes to everyone in the room. Once these are developed and each of the 6 groups presents its stances on issues A, B, and C, we then begin to pair up the 6 characters into 3 different groups. In this part of the negotiations, you need 5 complete rounds so that each character can meet with the other 5 characters separately. After the 5 rounds of negotiations, all of the tables return to their individual positions around the room, separate from any of the other characters. At this point in the negotiations, each team must decide how to send 1/3 of their group to the 3 diplomatic pods, as we call them, which are no longer one character versus another, which you see in the triangle. Rather, each of the 3 pods is an issue-based table, so that issue A, the threat of nuclear war, becomes one area or center for negotiations to commence. Issue B becomes the second table where negotiations will be held, this one focusing on the 4 Russian-occupied regions, and letter C will focus on the issue of agricultural exports coming out of Ukraine. This way, each of the teams must choose 1/3 of its members to go to each negotiation table focusing on an issue. Hence, in this round of negotiations, it is no longer one character versus another. It is all 6 characters sending representatives to the issue tables so that you can focus on the issue rather than the us versus them mentality of one character versus another. By the end of this round of negotiations, which is again limited to 15 minutes, all participants at the 3 issue-focused tables must author 1/3 of a final document that becomes a treaty, a copy of which is printed and signed by every single person who is participating in this conflict resolution simulation exercise. That letter, which we call a treaty proposal, is then mailed to all of the leaders around the world that have a stake in this particular conflict. In the case of the Ukraine case study, I personally send copies of this treaty proposal to Secretary of State Antony Blinken, to the Foreign Minister of Russia, to the Foreign Minister of Ukraine, and to the Foreign Ministers of the state of Georgia and Turkey. This entire intellectual outward bound exercise forces people to separate the people from the problem. It forces them to focus on the issues. It teaches them how to achieve mutual gains. And it teaches them to walk away from this negotiation exercise, able to apply the skills they've learned to their own lives to prevent what I call the cancer of conflict from metastasizing more effectively. And the skills that they learn include comprehension, compromise, collaboration, creativity, and ideally, more peaceful coexistence. Thank you for watching this video, and there will be more instructional videos to come.